Welcome to the Field of 68 After Dark's YouTube channel. We are going to be live every Tuesday and Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time right here on YouTube and on Stadium for the entirety of the spring.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go more into the fact of Hurley and the decision-making process and how long it took. And according to my sources, he flipped. He flipped a few times here. And again, I think this thing heated up last Wednesday. And obviously, we saw Dan Hurley go to Billy Joel the other night. And that was kind of a reprieve from him because he has wrestled with this decision really since Wednesday. And then he went out obviously to LA. What was that? Friday, and then came back and went to Billy Joel. But this was not an easy decision, and this was not a money decision because obviously the Lakers were paying him probably a little bit more than $70 million for 6 years. So you're talking somewhere in the neighborhood of about $12 million a year, where UConn's going to pay him a little over $8 million a year. So if it was a money decision, if it was an ego decision, I think Dan Hurley would have went to the Los Angeles Lakers and challenged himself at the highest possible level. But comfort meant something to him. Also, the fact, obviously, of doing something that hasn't been done since the early 70s by John Wooden's UCLA teams, three-peating. And also, again, just the fact that I do feel like Dan Hurley feels like he can impact kids at this level in college, even with the changing landscape of college basketball, that he can impact kids. The thought, and he talked to Billy Donovan, he talked to some of those other coaches that went the college to NBA route. It is difficult. Listen, if you think Russell Westbrook was running the plays that Billy Donovan called, you're out of your mind back in Oklahoma City. Dan Hurley understood where his role was going to be with this Lakers team and again, wrestled with it and decided that, you know what, staying in store is not such a bad thing, even if he's taking a little bit of a hometown discount.
Yeah, and I will say this, Fanta. I think that he has an opportunity to become one of the all-time legends. Like I'm not saying that this is going to happen, but there's a possibility. Like he set himself up to be in a position where we could be talking about him in the conversation for the greatest ever, right? Like if he has a run over the next 15 to 20 years that's anything close to what he's done in the last like 3 or 4 years, we're going to be having conversations about, like, is it Dan Hurley or Coach K? Is it Dan Hurley or John Wooden, right? Like, I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but there's the possibility
Settle down there.
But you know what? There's a possibility for him to be in that conversation as one of the greatest of all time. And I think that a legacy like that is something that does matter to him when you look at kind of what his pedigree is, when you look at the way that people view his father at the high school level, when you look at the way that people view what his brother was as a player, right? And I think that is something that does he very much is a student of the game and the student of the history of the sport, right? And I do think that is something that matters. If you go to the NBA, your life is going to be different. You're going to be making a little bit more money, right? You're going to have easier summers. You're going to be a little bit less stress-free. The number of texts I got from people in and around the sport of college basketball that were like, the idea that somebody would turn down millions and millions of dollars to be able to not coach in college basketball right now, you got to be a sicko to do that. And I think that Dan Hurley is the kind of sicko that embraces what entails the being successful in college right now and understands that he has an opportunity to like put his stamp on the game of college basketball and the sport of college basketball. And I think that matters to him.
Well, he's already put a stamp on it by winning back-to-back championships. Only 3 coaches in the last 40 years have been able to do that, and that's Mike Krzyzewski, Billy Donovan, and Dan Hurley. So I think, Jeff, your point about this is what we need to dive further into here. This was a fluid situation, and you credit Hurley right off the bat. He kept this extremely, extremely close to the vest. In fact, a lot of the late stuff that came out about this, a lot of theorizing, a lot of puff. The fact is, he kept this close to the vest. You don't fly out to Los Angeles if you're not taking it seriously. This was a serious search, interview, process, all of those things. And this is something that he did weigh because the Lakers offer a lot of different things that are unique and that could be a fresh challenge. But the fact is, he's coming off back-to-back championships. He got Alex Karaban to come back to UConn. There's a sense of unlimited loyalty there that we have to look at. He recruited Liam McNeely. a guy that's going to be a freshman in college here. Those relationships, the championships, his face, he is the lead face in college basketball. The fact is, in the NBA, Jeff, the coaches are not the face. They're never the face, no matter what kind of personality they have. And I think that matters here.
Well,
you know what's crazy?
I don't think
ahead,
Dan
Jeff.
Hurley was worried about adapting. We were all worried about Dan Hurley having to adapt and obviously go to a league where it's all about the players instead of the coach. I talked to somebody very close to Hurley, and he said, listen, he can change. He knows, he has to change if he goes to the NBA. He's not going to be up riling up the crowd the whole game, working the officials. Part of the reason he does that is because he feels he needs to do that, whether it's, for his players, for the program or whatnot. But ultimately, he wasn't worried about adapting. That's not what this was about. I think this was more about betting on himself and looking at it and saying, you know what? Even with the landscape of college basketball changing and a lot of coaches feeling it's a complete shit show right now, I'm pretty happy. Now, again, of course you're pretty happy. You just won back-to-back national titles. So while everybody else is bitching and complaining, you're able to get these guys, again, at a hometown discount, a little bit of a discount in the portal. So it makes life a little bit easier for you than it does for all these other coaches.
Yeah, I think that is a very, very important point, right, Jeff? That when UConn is dealing with all this portal stuff right now, they're dealing with, okay, who are we going to turn down? Like, who do we say no to? It's not who are we going to go out and get. It's we can get whoever we want. We got to figure out who it is and who to say no to. And that's a very different level of stress than in saying, I just had 8 guys into the portal. Yeah. And I have to go out and raise all this money from boosters to be able to find a way to put together enough guys to be able to have practices, right? To be able to play 5-on-5. And like, that's a completely different level of stress than what he's dealing with right now. And I think when you're in that position, it changes the way that you view it. Now, it also helps that he's bringing back that coaching staff that has helped him so much, right? Like, I think it's a different conversation again if there's no guarantee that Kamani Young, Luke Murray, and Tom Moore is going to be on that staff as well. So I think that is certainly something that helped. But the idea that the guy that is coaching in Storrs, Connecticut, has said no to the University of Kentucky and no to the Los Angeles Lakers in the span of 2 months is it's wild, man. Dan Hurley is staying at UConn. Scott Drew is staying at Baylor. Nate Oates is staying at Alabama. Like, I kind of love that all of these coaches that are kind of in, I don't want to say off the beaten path places, but aren't in the places that typically have the most money and the biggest fan bases and the most prestige, are staying exactly where they are. I love that about college basketball. Yeah. If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM Sportsbook. We're going to be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68 throughout the year. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, you can use bonus code FIELD, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. The best part, all you need to do is deposit and bet $10 of your own hard-earned money to be eligible. Here's how you make it work. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using that bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure that you use that bonus code FIELD when you sign up. BetMGM is going to have some fun offers available throughout the NBA playoffs. Bet insurance tokens, odds boost, and what I love, a nice parlay booster too from time to time, as well as a ridiculous array of player prop bets for any sport that you could possibly imagine betting on. BetMGM is and always will be the king of the prop bet. So go download the BetMGM app, use the bonus code FIELD, and sign up today. And while I've got you, a quick request. The best way to support the Field of 68 content that you get for free is to engage with us. Rate and review the podcast. Like and share the YouTube videos. Tell your friends about us. It all helps in a world where the algorithm is king. Yeah, that's the biggest thing, right? Is once we kind of get to this level of revenue sharing in college basketball, a lot of that money that typically goes to some of these coaches is going to end up going towards paying the salaries of some of these players and paying the making sure that you can get the guys you want. Now, I along those same lines, you got to remember that when you're able to develop players the way that Hurley has the last 2 years, when you are able to get guys to their ultimate goal of playing in the NBA, where they will make real money. I'm not saying that the money they're going to make in NIL isn't real money, but when you are able to kind of get them to that level to reach their dream while also having success at the college level. How many guys in the transfer portal saw Cam Spencer this year go from being someone that was like, there's a guy on Rutgers that hit a couple game winners, but like I don't really know anything about him, to being he was in the conversation for Big East Player of the Year. He's going to end up playing in the NBA at some point in the next 2 seasons, right? I think everybody sees that and like, yeah, let me get there, even if it means I'm making $300,000 less in NIL this season than I would in another place.
Can I hop in the car here and go on a soapbox for 45 seconds? This is
only 45. That'll
win.
be the shortest soapbox segment in the history of John Fanta's career covering college basketball. So go ahead. Take as much time as you need, Johnny Fanta.
Yeah, I'm not going to take as much time as we need. I really want to know how your ham and cheese sandwich was for lunch, but that's neither here nor there. This is a massive win for Connecticut. This is a huge victory for the Big East Conference. And this is a glorious W for college basketball. This injects a shot in the arm for a sport that has recently said goodbye to Coach K, Roy, Jay, and John Calipari at Kentucky. College basketball needed this news. It got this news, and the face of the sport, had he left, you're talking about another question in the sport that we cover and we love about who is the face now of college basketball. Dan Hurley has never shied away from the fact that he'd like to coach in the NBA someday. Regardless of what you think about the Lakers' job, how good it is, or if it's overrated, regardless of what you think, you can't deny its brand impact on the level of the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Yankees. But hell, the UConn brand matters. What Hurley built matters. Going for a three-peat is historic. That has significant impact and matters. This is what college basketball needed, and who thought it would happen in June? But it cannot be overstated what kind of victory this is for college hoops.
Thanks for watching the Field of 68 After Dark. Make sure to hit that like button.